Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Montoursville Area School District Board of Directors on this Tuesday, October 11, 2022. The time is 7:01 p.m. I would invite all to, let's do the roll call and then we'll do the pledge. So, Secretary, if you would call the roll.
Mr. Albert.
Here.
Mr. Badger.
Here.
Dr. Beery.
Here.
Dr. LaCrone.
Here.
Dr. Mathers. Here. Mr. Schimmel.
Here.
Mr. Snell.
Here.
Mr. Ulmer.
Here.
Mr. Young.
Here. Okay, if you all would rise and join me in the pledge to the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In way of recognitions and presentations tonight, I don't believe there is any. So we'll move on to the student representative. And Zach, do you have anything for us tonight?
I do have two things. So number one, recently we had our homecoming parade and our football game. We lost, regretfully. However, we did have the dance on October 8th, this recent Saturday. From what I am told, because I did not go, I didn't have time. I am told that it was a great dance, and that students really enjoyed it. And the second thing is, I believe it had something to do with the, I want to say the arrowhead and our photography. I'm blanking on what happened, but I believe they made a mistake. I'm probably wrong on that. So if anyone wants to correct me, please feel free.
The Arrowhead staff.
There were over 400 students at that dance in our cafeteria, so it was one of the more well-attended events by our student body. So it was a good night.
Okay, good. Okay, with that, thank you, Zach. With that, we'll move on to the reading in the minutes. We have the 9:13 regular meeting minutes and then the 9:27 work session minutes. Do we have a motion to approve?
Move to approve. Second.
Okay, I assume no corrections or anything, so hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, now we'll move on to prior presentation. I believe Pastor Shimko is here with us tonight.
Thank you again for allowing Minister to have this opportunity to pray for you. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for tonight and the opportunity to make little decisions as well as major decisions in the life of many students. May you just lead and guide this group of leaders that you've assembled. Thank you so much for raising them up and the commitment that they have to see the best in each one of our students. And Lord, may you just lead and guide them in their thoughts and in their actions tonight. And we just give you praise. For it's in your name we pray.
Thank you. Okay, move on now to item 4 on the agenda, the public comment period. Residents and taxpayers may comment on matters of concern, official action, or deliberation before the board. Members of the public will be provided one unpaused 3-minute time frame to address us. If you'd let us know who you are and where you live.
Good evening, Tina Marie Klein, 1009 Toole Street, Montoursville Borough. I am glad you're having a conversation and a discussion on the addition of armed security, but I do have to point out the irony that as I walked in the front door, there's a sign on the door that says door open, come right in. So we're kind of inviting people to come in. Like, I'm just saying, you know, we can have that armed security, but if we're not doing common sense things, one man is not going to fix the problem. Thank you.
Jack Callahan, 113 Art Street, Montoursville. I want to know if you're planning anything for Halloween. I tell you, in the old days, what we had out here, right at the school, we had bobbing for apples. I'd like to bring a tub in here next week, 2 dozen apples, and see all you bob for apples. I think it's impossible to do, but everybody was doing it. And we also had where you throw the rings on the canes. Everybody liked, they had a dice head, an elephant head, a tiger head, and whatever. They had that, and then they had the penny pitch, which is up to a dime or whatever it is now. That board. Then they had the ropes with what you call it, the dishes, and then they had a square dance, you know, and then they had hay rides for the kids, and they had donuts for everybody, anybody. I mean, it was all free. I just wonder if the school is going to do anything or have anything for Halloween or not. You know, I don't know. I mean, anything special? Halloween dance for the kids or parade or anything at the schools or anything?
Each school does, they plan events.
Okay.
By the time high school hits, it's mostly just a few kids dressing up, but the elementaries have programs, middle school does some things.
Oh, that's
But there
good.
are,
Yep.
yep.
Okay. Is there anybody else? Okay. All right, seeing nobody else approaching the podium, we'll move on now to the business manager's report.
You've received copies of the treasurer's reports for the period ending September 30th, 2022 for the general fund and cafeteria fund. We are submitting these for the board for your consideration of approval. You will notice your reports are a little bit different this evening due to the fact that we're in between softwares and part of the information is coming from our old software system and part of the information is coming from the new software system. For the next meeting, everything should be moved over to the new software system. So sorry about that, but the way the reporting is done and we had to end on a month, it did do a little bit of weird things there, but just wanted to make you aware of that. So if we can have a motion.
Okay. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it.
For budgetary transfers, there was one budgetary transfer attached, and that was just for board awareness, so no action is needed on that one this evening.
Question on
Okay.
that. Can you read the person that requested that budgetary transfer? Because I sure can.
Oh, was there two? Oh, I
And
thought
there
I
is
saw
two of
one.
them.
Okay, I only saw one earlier. Sorry,
Oh, it's all right.
I just saw this one.
That one needed.
This one doesn't need one. This one's Melissa, the athletic director,
There's Tyler.
and okay, I didn't see, no, and that one's just for awareness also, but I'm sorry, I didn't see that one. There is two, and they are both just awareness, and the other one is Tyler's.
And could you remind those individuals to print their name beside their sign names so we can see?
Yep, that was Melissa's first and Tyler's first. They haven't
Yes.
been through that training yet, Mr. Snell.
How it works, right?
We will make sure they get their printed or typed names on it.
All I got to say is when I sign my name, you can read my name.
Maybe there's a place to maybe modify the form to put a box.
Yeah, we'll take care of that. Yep.
Yeah, we'll still give you a one, but
Yeah.
we'll take care of it. Sorry we didn't catch it. We haven't had them in a while, so.
Right, thank you.
Moving on to C, you've received copies of the listing of invoices for the general fund and cafeteria fund for the period ending October 11th, 2022. We are submitting these to the board for your consideration of approval and payment.
Did we have a second? Second. Okay. Any questions on any items?
I have a question on two. Check number 63557, which went to Gov Connection. What is that used for, and is it a reoccurring cost every year?
Is that for a baby sign?
What was the check again? Sorry.
63557.
557. is Adobe Sign.
Yeah, so that's for digital signatures, so that allows us to send and receive paperwork digitally and have that signed digitally in a way that can be tracked and actually trusted.
Is that a reoccurring expense?
It is, however, this is our first year using it, so the way that they charge us is by usage. This year we were given basically a 50% discount. We've got a whole bunch of licenses for it at a low rate, and then depending on our usage, we can adjust it either higher or lower for future years if we need to.
The other one I have a question on is 63673 SSM Group Incorporated for mold sampling. Is that what that's for?
That's, we do air quality testing before we start school every year.
Okay, is that the air
That's all
quality?
4 buildings, that's our.
And we do it twice a year, correct?
That particular one is once, before school starts. There's other air quality testing that's done in the valley and stuff, but that particular one is done at every school. Tapes, they do tape samples and air quality at every building, right before we start school because of, we don't want any problems to get ready for school. Yeah.
Can the results of that test be shared?
Yeah, as long as they, if Dan are okay with it, yeah, I don't see why not. Yeah. They're great this year, they're really good.
That's all I have.
Okay. Hearing nothing else, and we can have a roll call on that.
Mr. Albert?
Yes.
Mr. Badger?
Yes.
Dr. Berry?
Yes.
Dr. LaCrone?
Yes.
Dr. Mathers?
Yes.
Mr. Schimmel?
Yes?
Mr. Snow? Mr. Ulmer?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Okay, and for business, right now we just went live with Tyler on October 1st. We are working through our first payroll with the system actually live. So we're working through that this week, and there's still a lot of things that we're kind of in between systems on, so we're working on 2 systems, but it's going well. The team has done an excellent job. Jess isn't here this evening. I told her to go home because she has been putting in a ton of extra time trying to get everything situated, and she's actually working on stuff right now for this next payroll. So that is how we're going with that. And also this week we have the auditors here, so we are working through things with the auditors as well as working through it to go live with Tyler this week. So it's been a kind of crazy start to the month, but we usually present those in January. So I'll have estimates at the end of November, but they're usually not finalized until the beginning of January. Yes. Mm-hmm. And that's all I have this evening.
Okay, all right. And with that, we'll move on to the superintendent's report, and we'll go around the room, seeing what the administrators have for us, and we'll start Mr. Hanner over there.
Okay. In the world of special education, the intermediate unit will be hosting their parent task force meetings. The first meeting is going to be starting on November 3rd. The meetings will be alternating between the Canton office as well as the Waynesport office, and the meetings are from 5:30 to 7. The meetings are also all available for folks on Zoom, and there will be a Zoom link that is attached as well. So if anyone is interested in not able to drive to Canton, they can participate via Zoom. And the other meetings are January 12th, March 16th, and May 11th, and you can find all of that information on our Montoursville website under the Special Education tab. Another piece is on our professional development that we did yesterday at our in-service training. Wendy Baker, our school psychologist, presented to our secondary special education staff how to administer and score the Kaufman test of educational achievement, the 3rd version of that. This is a test that our teachers give to our students at the beginning of the school year, and what they're doing is they're assessing their abilities in their academic areas, whether that being English language arts, that being the math, as well as the writing areas. So it gives our teachers a great baseline information at the beginning of the school year, and it helps us to know really where to target our instruction with those students as well. So I wanted to thank Wendy for being able to provide that information and training to our staff. And then the final piece that I have here is, in the past, I've talked about our special education plan that we had been working on in the special education department that was due at the end of July. And I received notification on September 21st that that plan was received and approved by the Pennsylvania Department of Education. So I was very thankful for that as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Farrar.
Well, lots going on, as in every school. A couple recognition pieces to point out. Thanks to the fire companies that did the fire safety event with the kids, and they tried actually a couple new things for, stations for the children to go to, but, they focus on, it was interesting to watch them say, okay, you call 911, if you're a what's the first thing you're going to want to know? And what's the first thing the kids say? My name! And of course, the folks from the 911 center says, no. Says, we want to know your name eventually, but the most important thing we need to know is, where are you at? So, just again, a helpful reinforcement for parents and teachers and everybody that the biggest thing is being aware of where their location they're at, of course, their home address as well. But again, they do a fantastic job, great stewards of our community, and take the time out of both elementary schools to spend some time with kids that love fire trucks and the awe of that, but they also teach them important safety lessons as well. Thanks to the Key Club here at the high school. Once again, they're continuing the Pen Pal project with fourth graders at both elementary schools. We started actually the freshmen in the high school this year were the first group of fourth graders ever to be a part of that. So now they get to kind of pay it forward and return in favor. So it was interesting to watch that. And of course, it immediately made me feel old because to me, like, started yesterday. But it's amazing how time flies. And, but again, kudos to our teachers and the kids. They're off to a great start and continuing. Got our fall fundraiser and lots of other things going on. And yes, we have our fall celebrations going on. So, and actually, Jack, I just ordered my Halloween costume for the kids. So
Okay, good.
Good to see it.
You're all coming dressed up the next meeting, I take it, right?
Okay, Mr. Myers?
All right, so October is the month of bullying awareness, so we're doing various activities in middle school to ensure that we're limiting bullying among the student population. We just had a Builders Club induction ceremony this past Wednesday, so we honored 25 new members to that group, so we're excited about their support of our students as well as the community. Thankfully, we just received some grants for drones to be flown in our Warrior Innovation Lab, and I'm happy to say that none have been broken at this point, so that's been exciting. The kids were able to fly the drones in there. Want to thank Wise's. We had just received a check for $1,100. If you sign up as parents, I sent a link out to all the parents last year, and just by going to Wise, we received $1,100, so that was really cool. And then Jack, we have on the 28th, we have a PBIS award day. Students are coloring pumpkins, making scarecrows. Everything's tied into positive behavior within the school. So I'm excited about that. So you'll see that outside of the middle school. Each class will be making their own scarecrow.
We used to do that where I worked, the pumpkins and that. I mean, you could bring a pumpkin into every teacher, and he or she could, paint it up and stuff,
Right.
You could have a contest.
Cool. And the last thing, I just want to thank the community and the students at McCall. We've, last year, we've used a lot of grant monies to purchase items for our PBIS program, one of which we had all the student staff with Taco Bills last year. This year, right now, we've raised a ton of money, and we're hoping to fund that through these donations with this fundraiser. So again, I look forward later on this year to report how we're going to use that money, but all that money is going right into students and positive behavior. So again, thank you to the community and students at McCall.
Curtis, how much is a ton of money?
Tonight we've $18,000 we sold of cookies, wrapping paper, and we received 40% back. So, so if we get $8,000 or $9,000, that should be, that should fund our 8th grade award days, 5th and 6th grade fun days, and then various prizes. So that's something, trying to figure out ways as the grant monies deplete.
Ton of pennies or a ton of $20.
Mr. Blaze.
So we had our, like at the end of the month, we had our Warrior Pride Games for our PBIS incentive. So we had kids that decided to use their PBIS points to come out and do the Pride Games. We had tug of war, we had sack races, we had three-legged race, we had the 100-meter dash. Everybody loved it. They had a snack afterwards, ice cream and some juice. So that was good for the kids to get out there and enjoy that. I'm actually super proud of the walkathon. This might be my first year here. It's my first year I ever got to experience the walkathon. So I think the PTO set a goal of $7,000. I think with the community funds, the community donations, the kids just raising the money, they surpassed that by like $2,500. So they made a huge killing in that, which was exciting. So now I get to camp out next Wednesday up on the grass out at the school. So if you drive by, just be careful. Don't scare too bad.
There are bears.
Get your bear spray.
We also had our glow night on October 1st on Saturday. That night that it poured and poured and poured and poured. We teamed up with Snyder's Farm, and I think the gentleman, I don't know his name, gentleman that runs it, yeah, he said that he's never seen so many people there on a Saturday night and at his quarters in years. So we teamed up with him. We made he split everything in half with us, so the PTO made them another chunk of money on that. So we appreciate that, him allowing us to work with him. Trying to think what else. We're having our fall festival day on Friday, October 14th. Have a bunch of activities planned for the kids, decorating pumpkins. Just the teachers have their own little parties that they're going to have for the kids. And then at the end of the month, on October 29th, if you are not busy, it's Saturday night. Joe, you're probably free. Trunk or treat at Valley. Chocolate on there. So, but seriously, come out and enjoy it. We're trying to get as many people as we can there to just get the kids out and have a good time. Other than that, business as usual. So.
Thank you.
You want it, Joe and Sebastian?
Well, I can go to them. All right, gentlemen. Perfect. Thanks. No, I don't have much other than we had our in-service yesterday. We finished up our Act 13 educator effectiveness training, and everybody is now in PAETEP, our evaluation software. So that's up and running and going. We have transitioned to what are called student performance measures instead of the old SLOs that we used to use. So we are on track with our employee teacher evaluation program and the software that goes with that. I think what you heard here tonight was a lot about the community and how connected we are with each other between the farm. I know Montoursville Fire Department, Eldred, Plunkett's, they were out there. It just really is, we had the Fall Festival at Indian Park. That doesn't happen without us cooperating with Kiwanis. That's a lot of our clubs there working that event, from parking to some of the entertainment, the games and such. So really it's, we're a hub for the community. We're connected with the community, and it makes it all so much better. And that's why Curtis can raise a ton of money to replace this grant money to continue the PBIS program there. So thanks to the community and of course our kids for working so well together to make this all happen. So I don't have anything else to add. Okay, that all sounds great. So thank you very much. We'll move on now to the agenda items, and in the general section, we'll do a little grouping, a little separating. Now, G1 we'll take separately. It's approval of the PSBA officers. So you see the slate there. So we have a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any questions on that? Okay. Well, hearing nothing, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, extension? Yeah, extension, yeah. Abstention, thank you, there we go. Okay, Mr. Snow, abstain. Okay. All right, let's group G2, G3, and G4. With your consent, do we have take a moment to look at the three together and then have a motion to approve G2, 3, and 4?
Move to approve. Second.
Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Then G5, approval of Gene Koick as a contracted, okay?
Yeah, I have a question. This is supposedly for the rest of this year and next school year. And there's gonna be Easter's fund used for it. Are we adding a school guidance counselor? And what are we doing after 23-24 school year?
So I'm not sure that ESERS is correct. I didn't do this agenda. This is the mental health money coming from the state. They call it a grant, but I don't know why they call it a grant, but it's called a grant. The things that we can spend it on don't exist in this area because we just don't have the mental health services that the state identified for us to spend it on. We are allowed to spend it on a certified counselor, so we are adding a counselor for those 2 years to spend that money.
And that's $180,000?
It'll be one, don't have,
I mean, that's what the.
roughly, it's
grant
one,
was.
it's under that, but yeah, roughly. I don't think it's quite that high. Give me just a second. $128,354. And then the safety and security part is another $128,354 for a total of $256 in grant monies. So it's $128,354 that we're spending on this.
So in those 2 years, it's not gonna go over the 128?
No, no, it's calculated out at a per diem rate in that contract, and the days are calculated to equate to that amount of money.
Right. Hearing no more questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. All right, moving on to personnel. I'd like to group P1, P2, and P4. Take a peek at them.
Can we separate P4, please?
Okay, then we'll do P1 and P2 to start with. So, got the resignation of Josh Haley and the guest addition to the guest teacher substitute list. So P1 and P2. Do we have a motion for P1 and P2?
Move to approve. Second.
Okay, no questions. And in that case, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. All right. P3 is the approval of Rhonda Albert as the assistant middle school principal. Revise your effective date to October 17 on that motion. And you see the 85,000 prorated as the salary. We have a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second. Any questions?
I don't have a question, I have a statement to make. I find it kind of ironic that there are those on this board that use the fact that enrollment's going down when it fits their narrative, yet they continue to vote for expanding the administration.
If I might comment about that, Ron, I think enrollment has become at all over the place. There's substantial, I want to say, counseling experience, perhaps social science experience, in the sense that that was a need that was identified, and I thought was very loudly and clearly identified by the middle school staff when they were surveyed. That was, a comment was there, and the rest of the board jump in anytime. But it was clearly indicated to me that this was a position that was needed by the staff, by our students, and again, is not at all related to parenting.
Okay. Hearing no more comments, and all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Ayes have it. Oh, and we have an abstention, that's right, sorry Danny, I knew that. Okay, P4, coaching staff addition. Well, after we finish the personnel, all right. Okay, so we have approval, addition to the coaching staff. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
Okay. Personnel item, I don't think there's much that should be said, if you're gonna vote up or down. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Okay. We have one abstention, and ayes have it. Thank you. And transportation, you saw the approval of the busing rates on T1 and the amounts of $22.9802 and $24.15.97 for September. Do we have a motion on that? Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any questions? All right. Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. And then T2, approval of the busing rate for the 2022-23 school year. And that was an attachment we had. So do we have a motion on T2? Motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions? All right, hearing none. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, and we'll move on now to a general item, G6, and that's a board level discussion on the addition of armed security and security in general. There's no plan to have any kind of action on this. This is a board, kind of a work session in some sense to discuss where we want to go with this. So with that, I'll open the floor to.
You want the presentation?
No, there's a presentation.
The survey presentation? The
Sure.
results?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes.
Oops, I worked on.
Yeah.
While I'm getting set up, I want to congratulate Mrs. Albert, having worked side by side with her for 15 years. I'm excited to have her as part of the admin team. It's a welcome addition. Another female on the admin team for you, Brandy. And if you would like to say a few words, please.
I would actually. I just want to say thank you to all of you for your confidence in me and for the approval today. I'm really excited. I've been an employee of the district for the past 20 years, and it's truly been an honor. I certainly don't take for granted all the relationships and the opportunities that this district has afforded me, and can't be a better place to work. So I'm just super excited, and I can't wait to be a contributing member on the team. So thanks again.
Thank you. Welcome aboard.
You didn't take long enough.
Sorry, you want me to say more?
So it has to do
present the survey results before you have this discussion. We sent out, my clicker went to sleep too. There we go. We sent out a quick survey that had 3 basic responses that were asked. I'm in favor of unarmed security personnel at our schools. I am in favor of armed security personnel at our schools, and I'm willing to accept a tax increase to pay for that armed security personnel at our schools. This was not scientific, not at all. It was, there's some questions on whether we should put dollar figures and such in this, but we wanted a quick snapshot for the board to have an understanding of where our school community landed on this. So we sent out 1,597 surveys for our school messenger program, and when I say school community, that went to our parents or grandparents that are signed up and attached to a kid here in the district. We received 546 of those back for a return rate of 34.6%. Security, 13% were neutral and 17% disagreed with having armed. When you look at the unarmed, that goes to 47% agreed, 27% were neutral, and 26% disagreed. And then in terms of the tax increase, 45% of those responding agreed with the tax increase to fund this, 25% were neutral, and 30% disagreed. And again, I will add, this question did not have a price tag attached to it. It was in general just a tax increase. Some other interesting things of those that supported the armed security, 381 of them, of those responses were in favor of the armed security. 84.8% of those that were in favor were either neutral or agreed to the tax increase to support that initiative. 15.2% that were in favor of armed security did not agree. They disagreed with the tax increase to support that initiative. And then the last one there, 34.1% overall responded either agreed or neutral to having both armed and unarmed. So those were people that agreed with armed and were either neutral with unarmed and armed. So basically that is explaining keeping the guys we have now at the elementary schools and adding to what we have. There were 4 responses that agreed to a tax increase, but were neutral on the security personnel questions. I thought that was interesting. I didn't think there were 4 people out there that would agree to any tax increase and remain neutral on something. And then 19 were the number of responses that were neutral to every question, all 3 questions that were asked. So that's a summary. I know you received that earlier, but this is also for the public to see those results. If you'd like, I could post those on the web as well, that document that I sent to all of you. I think that might be good to show the community the results of that survey, since the community isn't completely here this evening. So that leads us to the discussion, and this could go on till tomorrow or the weekend if we don't put some kind of parameters on it. So there are some questions to consider in the discussion. I know this was emailed as well to you. So that first one is, what do we do with the current unarmed security personnel at the elementary buildings? The second one up there is, how many of the armed security personnel is appropriate? And I know you've had some of those conversations in different places. What do we need from the security personnel? This is the only place that we will give a recommendation. This question has to do around arrest powers, and do we want a school police force? We would recommend absolutely not, that we keep our SRO. The arrest powers stay with that SRO. What we're asking and looking at tonight is armed personnel and not turning them into a school police force. So we're not interested in buying a car, sending them to the magistrate with charges and such. We'll leave that up to our SRO. Who are we going to consider to be potential candidates? What are their backgrounds? Is it retired state police? Is it retired military? Retired SROs? Are we in need of full-time and part-time individuals? Those part-timers could serve as substitutes and cover events for us. And then what are the financial obligations that are needed to support the final plan of action. So those are questions to consider. They've been posed prior. I think those are all what you have been debating with each other and internally as we look at this. And then all I would ask is for the employees and students that attend, that are in our buildings day in and day out, is that you please use discretion in discussing school security. We don't want an overall discussion. We don't want to let people know exactly what's already in place in some cases. So please keep it to the armed security personnel question. There are also a couple of options that were sent in an email. There's a $400,000 startup cost. This particular option keeps the current armed personnel. And these aren't recommendations. They're not suggestions. They're just something to help get discussion started and to get us on track and hopefully keep us on track in this conversation. There are 4 full-time. We're keeping the unarmed at the elementary. That's $38,000 that's already in the budget. Adding 4 full-time armed security personnel and 2 part-time. There would be $319,000 in new money that would need to be funded and continue to be funded in addition to other costs in the district. And this would be an overall annual cost of $350,000 a year. The full-time salary and benefits of the full-timers are $64,750 per person. The part-timers would be $30,000 per person. These are only estimates. They're not actual costs. The second option is we don't keep the unarmed folks at the elementary school. We still add the 4 full-time to part-time. This would be $281,000 in new money for $319,000 annual cost. And again, you still have that $400,000 startup plus $75,000 in equipment and training. Finally, a third way to look at it, you could keep the current unarmed, add 2 full-time armed, 2 part-time armed, and that reduces your new money further, and you have that annual cost of $227,500. This also reduces the startup costs and the equipment and training costs. And that startup and equipment and training is all covered by the ESSER funds that are going to be used for the 3 teachers, 3 full-time elementary instructional support teachers.
Say that again.
Money for the startup and the equipment and training was coming from the ESSER funds that were set aside for the instructional support teachers at the 2 at the elementary and 1 at the middle that we did not hire. So that money was reserved for this.
For security instead of education.
We will be using the ESSER's grant funds.
And you did not hire because you could not find somebody, or?
It was put on hold because of this discussion. So I'll leave that up. That's really all I had. Hopefully that keeps us on track for the
You
discussion.
put slide 1 and 2 back up, the option 1 and 2, please.
Scott, if you look at this last one, it's a summary of what's on those.
Okay, thank you.
So it has them all on one screen. Yep.
Dan, what's the 400,000 startup include?
That's the training. Actually, that funds the first year of them, I believe. Salaries and benefits. That first year. So none of this would hit the budget this year.
So that 75,000 for training is included in that 400,000?
No, that's in addition. That's a one-time. Was my understanding of it.
Are we still keeping our armed officers now?
As I said, that was our only recommendations, that we keep the arresting powers with the SRO, and that we would retain those services. So with that.
Okay. I think it comes down to the threshold of, if you're in favor of crossing the threshold to armed, then how shall we do it? Or if you aren't in favor of armed, then how do we do that? And And it seems to me we almost need a sentiment from the board on which way, you know, as a consensus. We aren't going to be voting, but we certainly can express our opinion tonight and get that general sense of which way we're leaning on this. So I think, you know, that crossover or needs to be made or not made to armed. And that's, I think that's where we start. We have the numbers, we have the dollars, and whether that's palatable is another discussion. So.
Well, I have to say, if we do choose to have armed guards, what they are, in our schools, and we have, I mean, it would make more common sense picking number 2, because have 4 full-time and 2 part-time to fill in for absenteeism. I mean, that we got 4 schools of 6 people hired. The part-time can come in, be pulled in to cover absenteeism, and with 4 full-time and 2 part-time, we wouldn't need the unarmed. And I'm only stating that if we decide to have armed personnel. Because if you go with 3, when there's an absenteeism, you're going to have schools that aren't covered. And if you want armed security, you want them all the time.
Well, right now we have actually 4 people that cover 2 part-time positions, is that correct? So if you have somebody in the morning and somebody in the afternoon and someone's absent, you do have a potential to ask that person to work a full day.
Not with 4 buildings.
Well, no, you'd have to add to unarmed. You'd have to add that number, but to add 38,000 is a lot less than 200 to 300,000. I think that it would be best to use our money to increase the school entranceways, get secure vestibules, make sure they're locked down, make sure that we have an alarm system on doors that are propped open. I've talked to some staff, and do we have a button, a panic button that they can push in the office to call 911 if something happens. Those, in my reading, securing your building is more efficacious in preventing school shootings than armed guards. In 2018, 4 of the high-profile school shootings, all 4 of those schools had armed guards, and they did not prevent students from being killed. I just don't, if I would think with my emotions and we had all the money in the world, I'd say, yeah, I want to protect our kids. But in all the reading that I've done, I can't find support that it works. So I would rather be responsible fiscally and educationally on how we spend our money. So that's my opinion.
Are we basing, I guess, the discussion seems to go toward arm, off of the response to the parent survey? Because again, I do question, I mean, that's a survey that we've got a third returns. So 2/3 of the folks didn't bother answering the survey was because they were neutral on it, they didn't care. That actually, the folks that were surveyed, only about 25% of them said, yeah, we want one. The rest either said, no, we don't, or didn't respond at all. It's a quandary for me, looking at that, and do I discard all those that didn't respond, saying, well, they had the chance, they didn't respond? Or did they not respond because it's not an issue for them? And my other question is, we had, I thought, some interesting data from surveys that went out to the employees from each of the buildings. And when I looked at that, you know, they're, aside from the high school, which again was interesting, the high school had a higher percentage of responding to every one armed. But yet the high school is the facility we have that has an armed guard. And as the dialogue took place, I found out that a great deal of that individual's time is spent at the high school. That individual doesn't necessarily get out to the other buildings as much as I thought happened. But if I look at that, you know, and I look, no. If I look at later, I think it was over 60%, and closer to 70% said, no, we don't want armed. Which, in looking at even one, I wonder, you know, there seems to be a different attitude between, and it could be because of the closeness that the later elementary is to the borough police and the state college, or the state police. And of course, we have 3 buildings that have that same, you know, type of response. And I looked at the middle school, and again, the weighting was less. I wrote that down somewhere here. 46% said yes to arming, 54% said no. So other than the high school, which was 80% said yeah, we want armed. But again, my question is, but they already have an arm. Don't they understand that they had an armed guard? Do they want 2 now?
I don't believe that armed SRO is here 8 hours a day straight. So he has responsibilities elsewhere. And if you actually look at the numbers from the school responses, there's a total of 100 responses from school personnel. 51 were in favor, 49 were not. So you could have them pretty much split right down the middle when you break down the percentages as to the overall district itself.
I'm not sure on those numbers, Dave, because with later being very disproportionate, no. I don't believe it was a 50-50 split. Only 50-50.
Well, take your percentages and do the number of responses, do the percentage as to the total responses, that'll give you your number.
Okay, but I'm trying to take into account the buildings as well. There's a lot of line difference.
I was saying from an overall, from the district-wide,
Yeah.
not from a building standpoint, I'm just saying overall.
I'm just not convinced that there is an overwhelming positive response for armed guards. I'm just not convinced of that, you know, at this point. I do believe that there, especially at the middle school, there was a clear signal sent that they wanted someone at the door. Didn't need to have them armed, but they wanted somebody at the door. And that was something that was here. Now, I do believe that our addition of an assistant principal at that building is going to make a difference, because now there's a second set of eyes in that building. I think one concern that came through to me in all the buildings was that they wanted some assurance that the security person was not just simply at the front door, but also was getting around the building and was helping secure that, making sure that building was secured. And, you know, some buildings are easier secured than others. And that's a discussion for another day. But I find myself probably moving toward what Doc was describing, that if I'm going to invest money, at this point, I want to invest in, I take Tina's comment at the start here today. Yeah, the front door, there's there's nothing there. I didn't feel afraid when I came in here today. But if there would have been someone there, escorting me through those doors, I would have felt more secure. And that person doesn't have to have a gun. It's just the fact that, that the entranceway into the building was, locked and had to be opened, by this person. And maybe that's something that we need to be thinking about at our advance notice. But again, that's not a discussion for today.
I agree with Dale, from the standpoint that one of the things that was, that stood out to me was the fact that you had an overwhelming amount of people who did not respond. How do you not respond to something like this, and to have that many not respond, what are they thinking? I would lean more towards the idea that they're not too concerned about it. I'm kind of torn between all of it from the standpoint that when it comes to these kids, the money's not the issue. It's the safety of that, we want to make sure that they're safe, but Guy, you made the comment that, it didn't matter if you had it armed or not, but there's gonna come a point in time where, God willing, it never does, but I always lean towards the favor of having somebody with the ability to stop something before it does happen. We can do that in a lot of other ways other than with armed guards, but it would take everybody to make sure the social media, we were aware, making sure that people within the schools are aware of any situations and make sure it's brought to the attention. So if we can, have discussions with our students about these things, which I'm sure you probably already do, is to, to really make sure that we communicate with our students and make sure that they understand as well how severe this could be if something isn't done. But your last defense is security, when it comes right down to it. And I'm not going to say it's not a matter of if or when. I don't believe in that. I believe the good Lord watches over us and does the best He can for us. And if we just have our eyes open and our ears are listening, you can prevent a lot of things from happening. And I can guarantee you that the shootings that occurred could have been prevented if people just would have listened, or they just used their eyes and saw what was happening. And that's kind of where I'm at with it right now.
Danny, to me, the PBIS program that the middle school's doing and now the elementaries are kicking in, that is a program that I have the impression anyway that it's to try and help those students that are struggling with issues. Eventually, when you talk about some peer mentoring, there are other students that are being tuned that it's a culture issue. And we just need to be certain that we're doing as much as we can to foster that culture within our school district. And to me, that's what's going to have the greatest impact on preventing a student from having to act out, and turn violent. So I just feel as a district we're very fortunate to be headed down that pathway. And I can't say thank you enough, Curtis, for the work you've done to start that PBIS program, and then again, getting it out at the elementary school. That's where I guess I'm inclined to put my money there. Or not put my money, but to invest money there. And there are security areas that need investments as well. And those, I think, are going to get identified. I'm just not certain at this point the investment is for arming, a number of, I wouldn't rule out adding a second SRO officer, especially finding out now that this, what I thought was an officer that was rotating on a non-scheduled basis, between the 4 buildings, is spending a lot of time maybe at just, one building, just because of the issues that are there. And maybe the investment in a second armed officer needs someone more in that SRO category.
I just want to say, add one other thing. Everyone, we gotta quit leaving doors unlocked out of convenience. We've gotta start thinking about it. And Mrs. Klein made a darn good point. Even though it's just a board meeting tonight, I did hear other people, I think they were in the auditorium when I come in. It sounded like there was other people in there. But the thing is, just because there isn't kids in classes at this time of day or night doesn't mean that something couldn't happen. So to leave the door open out of convenience, unlocked out of convenience, because it's simpler to do it that way, maybe we need to look at those changes too.
I had asked for this, but I would feel better interpreting the parent survey if the full cost had been known. A tax increase versus even, I thought the annual cost was going to be $250,000. So I would have preferred the people saying they didn't mind a tax increase if they had known the $400,000 startup, the $319 new money, and the $357 annual cost. I went to that Warrior Run presentation about a month ago, and a number of those speakers emphasized that you should have the risk vulnerability assessment results before you start planning where you're going to put your security money. It's almost like you're prescribing surgery or prescribing a medication before you know what the diagnosis is. So I guess I'm a little confused why we're voting on this before we have the results of the risk vulnerability assessment back. And my understanding is one of the things that goes into that is the location and time for the police to get to each school, which in the case of 3 of our schools is very rapid. Maybe armed for the valley might make sense if response time is a consideration in those recommendations. I guess my last question is, in reading about this, there have been a total of at least 7 school shootings where there were armed guards, and it made no impact. So I guess I'm curious, is anyone aware of any school shootings where the armed guard was the one who took out the shooter? I could not find any.
They didn't put it in the news. That's the problem. We have a liberal media that doesn't report it.
You're right.
You gotta look at the conservative ones to find it. Some don't do that. They don't like the conservative. They have an agenda, and this is their agenda.
As a student in here, I'd like to point out that Uvalde and Parkland both had SROs. And Parkland, to my knowledge, the SRO is being charged with negligence.
He was found innocent because they're not required to put themselves in harm's way.
Yeah, I haven't looked too much into Parkland. However, they both had SROs. And it is incredibly hard to find one where an SRO did help stop the shooting. Hang on, looking at my notes here. It's actually a lot easier to find ones where the shooting was stopped by faculty or counselors. But instead of just arguing about that, I'd like to say that looking at the larger spectrum, an analysis of 179 school shootings, which is lessen the severity of school shootings, sometimes they could increase them. Because the student who entered the building would have known about that SRO and would have entered more heavily armed and would have been suicidal, which I know is a tough topic to talk about, but I would like to point that out.
One question we don't know is how many schools that had SROs, officers, or armed security. We don't know how many people that would have done something had there not been armed security versus now they know that school has armed security, so they didn't do anything. We don't know that.
There's actually been studies that show that it does not deter.
You cannot quantify someone not committing a crime because of a police presence. It is impossible.
Exactly.
Impossible.
That's
You
what
can
I'm
read
saying.
all the studies you want, you can look at whatever. It's the same thing with crime statistics or crime trends. When you deploy a resource to a specific intent of criminal activity, and that criminal activity does not occur, you cannot quantify how many incidents or crimes you prevented. It is impossible. What you rely on is the fact that it didn't happen. That's the key. If it doesn't happen, then you have successfully deployed your resources in a way that negated a violent incident occurring on school property. That's the bottom line. Surveys, I think this, I think that. 30 years experience in this, let me tell you. You deploy resources to an area, it will make a difference. You do not deploy resources to a certain area, it will make a difference. Mostly all the schools around us have armed security in their buildings. Montgomery, Warrior Run, Loyalstock, Williamsport. We, for some reason, don't, which is why we have this discussion right now. But the last thing anybody wants to do as a parent, a grandparent, is to know that we could have done something and we didn't because it costs $400,000. I understand it's taxpayer money. I got that. I've worked with taxpayer money my entire career. It's not free. It's not easy. It's not easy to spend. It's not nice to raise taxes. I know that. However, I also know by not doing anything with this and hiring another mental health professional is not going to help when that guy walks through the door and our SRO is at Walmart dealing with a violent shoplifter and PSP is out at a fatal crash in Muncie with 6 people dead and the whole station is empty, and that guy walks in here. What's the response time going to be? 5, 10 minutes? That's carnage. And I don't agree with the other officers or the other school districts where the officers didn't do anything. I'm telling you from my experience as from the state police and how they are trained and how they react to these, they're not walking away from it. They're going towards it. That's a mindset, that's your life, that's what you do, that's the oath of office. And that's what this oath of office will be if we hire these people. Never to swerve from the path of duty. Give my life unto others. That's what they do. They're not afraid of it. Other departments might be. I'm telling you from my perspective here. So you can look at all the studies, you can look at all the data. If you don't have something in place and something happens, we are all responsible. Every single one of us. If we put someone in place and nothing happens, we're not going to pat ourselves on the back saying, look what we did. Because we don't know if we deterred anything. We just know it didn't happen. And that's what we're trying to do here. We want to make sure it doesn't happen here. And by God, it can't happen here.
I hear you. I I
Well,
can't
then,
see that it's
don't tell me about
going
mental health.
to make a difference.
Say again?
I don't, from what I'm reading.
You can read all you want to
Make a
read, it
difference.
doesn't matter. You cannot quantify a non-crime incident. It is impossible. There are no statistics available that says, I put an officer here, I deterred this many crimes. It is impossible.
How about the statistics that, from the JAMA report that examined 133 cases of school shootings, 1 in 4 had an armed guard on scene. Not only did the presence of the armed guards not correlate with fewer injuries, but the death rate was 2.83 times greater in school shootings with armed guards. So that's how I have to make my decision.
Then you can keep reading and make your decision based off of that reading, that's fine.
And what are the chances of this happening in Montoursville? The media explodes this when it happens. It's emotional, it's a tragedy. But how many school shootings compared to the actual numbers of schools has it happened in?
How many schools that have armed guards haven't had school shootings?
Happened to Bishop Newman.
Do we know?
I don't know that.
So we have the capability to protect ourselves. We have the will to do so because we've done it in the past, and then we have the intent because what's most important to us is what we live for every single day, and in this case, it's our children. So I agree with you, Mr. Young, over there. I really feel like we can look at statistics all day long, but we don't know how many schools that have armed guards didn't get attacked because they have armed guards. So that's not something that typically gets tracked. But I do know that if I can provide a deterrent in some case right away and not necessarily wait until I have a few years worth of evaluations and assessments on my schools and what we need to do to harden that facility, I'd rather put something in there right away that I know is at least going to give my kid a chance if something happens. I'm not against hardening the facilities and backing off on having armed security later on. I'm absolutely not against that at all. That's just my thoughts.
But, you can argue with my thinking here. If you take the number of school shootings and the number of school kids, a child has a 1 in 1,575,000 risk of dying in a school shooting. They have a higher risk of dying in a car accident driving to school. So if we're dedicated to protecting our children in terms of the highest probability of injury or death, we wouldn't let our teenagers drive cars.
Well, that's a parental choice, whether a child drives a car or not, okay? That's not a school board choice. So that's out of our jurisdiction. We can't control that. What we control is right here in this building, in our buildings.
So let's keep them secure and not allow an armed shooter to get into the school.
And how do you do that?
There's many ways you can do that.
No, just give me one way to stop an armed shooter without someone armed at the door.
Well, we have our schools locked down.
Okay, does a bullet go through glass?
We have bullet protection on the glass.
Every window.
Well, we're not supposed to discuss our security that we have right now.
No.
I respect your opinion, but I wish you would respect mine too.
I do respect yours, I just disagree with it. I'm not arguing. We can agree to disagree. That's not, I don't have an issue with that. Is that my whole life?
We also just, well, I don't want to talk about our security for Mr. T's request.
Yes, certain specific measures we take, you don't reveal them. You don't. We're talking conceptually here about whether we do or don't go with armed.
Thank you.
And I guess it's hard, like you said, Dave, to measure deterrence, but like Danny was saying, the behavioral threat assessment, when you look for the red flags of the students who are likely to do these things, the Secret Service did a study that I believe that there's evidence that that's prevented at least 50, because they found people when they went to the house who were actively plotting and had plans and pictures and diagrams and weapons. So, you know, in terms of at least the evidence you can gather, the threat assessment model of identifying who's at highest risk of committing and intervening before they do it.
I also said, though, your last defense is an armed guard. And I, you know, I don't want that blood on my hands.
Randy, what would that be about? That would probably be a 1 mil increase, right?
It's a half a mil, and that's at 100% collection. So at 95%, it's probably like 0.55 mils.
To raise how much money?
To pay for the,
357.
yeah.
The 357?
Well, it'd be the 319 in new.
I think I did 357.
Okay.
And then I think was option 8+0 on the building, I think was 0.09 mils for 3 years.
That's up now.
So you, I mean,
That's
whatever
not
we
even
vote on the
realistic
building
at
project
this.
is gonna be added on to this, right? So you're looking at,
And then plus your annual increases, so you're looking at approaching the index.
And the index
if
is
you do
0.87.
8+0 plus this.
Randy, if we're talking 281, say option 2, 281 new, that's about 4/10, isn't it? A little under 4/10. I mean, 800,000 a mil.
Yeah, we're right around 800.
What's that breakdown into monthly?
I don't have that information right here off the top of my head.
4/10 would be, the 4/10 would be about $50 a year for the average home. But,
Yeah, this year, it's not trying to like deter anyone's decisions, but if we decide to do any type of building projects and take this on, you're looking at going to index, which is 0.87. So,
I think at this point, as far as the building project is concerned, it's something that doesn't even exist for at least 2 to 5 years, just because of the way things are.
interest rates are set to go back up again in November. They're gonna be the highest they've been since probably 2008, 2007, around there,
They're gonna come back down.
eventually. But we're not gonna get money before November, so we're going into the highest interest rate season. This is how interest rates go. It's a cycle. It might be 10 years before they go back down. It might be 2 years and they go back down. We don't know. But we're coming on a bad borrowing time.
And if this happens now, your startup is covered by ESSER's funds.
And we got covered this year.
It's covered. If you wait, then you're looking at pulling from other resources.
What about the negative impact of armed guards on the school, on the children, on the students feeling unsafe? What about a gun accidentally left in a bathroom?
I'd like to add to that real quick. We have a counselor at each school, correct? We have a nurse. I'm pretty sure we have a psychologist. I don't know if we have a social worker. There are 14 million students across the United States alone that go to school with a police officer rather than any of those 4, which I'm not trying to sway the vote one way or another. I'm just trying to add more facts to it, and that there are students who are closer proximity to a handgun or handcuffs than someone like a medical or mental health professional. That's really all I have to add at this time.
Well, I think the discussion that we had initially was this armed individual wouldn't be walking around with an AK-47 strapped in the back. you know, maybe would be concealed. I'm thinking more.
Right, and
like-
without getting into detail of our previous discussions, that's all something that's down the road from a policy, procedure, job description, regulations, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I'm envisioning like an air marshal, you get on a plane, you have no idea.
Correct.
If there's one on there, or if there isn't. who it is.
And again, that's equipment, attire, that's something that we as a board would decide if it would go through.
Dale, as far as the study goes, Dan said it wasn't scientific because we didn't do statistical sampling. We basically said, hey, who wants to answer this? And so, in reality, those that are passionate answered, and we're glad for the responses for sure. So if we did a statistical sampling, something different would come out of that. I know that for sure. I don't know what it would be, but it'd be different. You know, as far as armed security, I just have no qualms and hiccups and hesitations about, you know, the implications of doing it. I don't. I have no, you know, as a fallback position, you know, someone is there all the time, and you don't get in first door without that person opening it, and you don't get through the second door unless you go through that person. Just, you know, securing the building. Some of the safety features that Dottie talked about, knowing when doors are open and being alerted, those kind of things have to happen too. So hardening the building that goes hand in hand to me. You know, we're not going to just do armed guards and not improve the building security. And the RVAT study will tell us in some ways how to do that. So I don't think we can do one without the other. But in terms of armed security, as far as the fear that some may have, I think it's a great opportunity for students who would be fearful for some reason to learn that, hey, this person is actually here to keep me safe. They are somebody I can trust. Because we certainly have a lot in the media that are just taking every chance they can to destroy our respect for, you know, for police, and we can't have that as a nation. We have to have that respect. So I think, yeah, I'm fine with us doing this. I don't like the taxes. I don't like what the taxes do to people that are, you know, in these tough times. I don't like that, but I'm okay with it. Yeah.
Dave, you say about adding another SRO officer.
If we didn't,
that would be kind of tough to do because that would affect Montoursville borough's taxes also.
Well, we would have to see if another municipality would like that, basically like to have a summertime cop while we borrow them during the school year. That's what it comes down to, and that would be a tough one to pull off. It would, I know that. Yeah, the borough has no interest in it. We know that.
Brandy, our insurance company would cover this. I mean, in the event that there's misperception of an object as a gun or collateral casualties or anything.
They won't confirm anything until the incident happens, when you send them possible situations. But I'm sure we'd have to take out some additional insurance having armed personnel.
Is there any way you can inquire with other school districts?
I can ask our insurance, you know, what we would have to do. I think we did look into it at one time, but I don't remember the response. The typical response we get back is, we can't give you an answer without carries a different one. So,
I mean, I'm looking more, I don't
I
want
don't
an
think
exact
that should
figure.
be-
I'm looking more for like, are we talking $10,000? Are we talking $1 million? I mean, what?
oh, it wouldn't be like,
Yeah.
no. I think it would be under $10,000, honestly, because our insurance.
Okay.
Joe, all of us is going to put our cards on the table. what you're thinking, Joe?
The thing that strikes me, and I understand what Dottie's saying about all these studies saying that the armed security didn't seem to help on those things that they studied, but I'm seeing what Dave says, and that is how many did the thought of armed security prevent? And like he said, we'll not know that. So to me, that makes those studies a little bit less reliable when you cannot gauge what you did prevent. I don't want to spend anybody's money that we, unnecessarily, but like Danny said, I don't want this, I don't want something to happen and know that we could have had some sort of deterrent.
Sue, would you say the amount of one in how many kids, students?
Oh,
It was one in how many?
Any individual child has a 1 in 1,575,000.
When you said that, the first thing that comes to my mind is, I wouldn't want my kid being that one.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing that comes to my mind when you said that.
So I like to work with numbers, and I like the statistical analysis and some of the stuff you're bringing up. It goes into the thought process. For me, I let a child drive, and I know there's a risk, and if they are foolish in the vehicle, hopefully not as foolish as I was. If they're foolish in the vehicle and it's a tragedy, I let that happen to my child. I'll have to live with that. But that's my choice, my family. In this case, for me, this is 8,000 citizens in our community. It's how many thousands of parents. It's how many thousands of kids that I'm. It's a different hat I'm wearing now. That's why I shift gears from what I allow as a parent versus what I'll do as a board member. So I appreciate those numbers because that is a factor. We have to process somehow, some way, process that numerical stuff, and so I appreciate it.
We've had the discussion now, it's one of those deals where in the past it wasn't a discussion, now it is a discussion, and I'm not willing to live with that, that idea that I'm gonna shut something down, and that's another story, but it's in front of us now, so we should do what is right.
But as I said, we won't be, there's no action on this tonight. This is discussion. We'll be inviting the public to come and speak to us at the next meeting and weigh in. Again, that's just those that are passionate one way or the other on the issue typically, and that's just the way we do it. It's, when you invite people to a public meeting, those that are most interested come, and the vast majority don't, and so be it. It is what it is. Ultimately, we have to make the decision. So,
Dave,
yes.
When we put this on the district website, can we also put on the survey that was done with staff?
Let's.
That one's quite as clean. I'll have to look at that.
Yeah, might have to sort of make it a little more general.
Each one of those was somewhat different in its own.
It was different. It was worded different. It was.
You know what I mean? It wasn't specific like this one was.
That's harder to summarize.
Yeah.
Can we
Yes, I
get,
realize that, but you can get an idea from the answers which way the staff.
That's a tough topic, because no one wants that to happen. So it's not that they don't value it. Anybody who answered no doesn't mean they don't value security, doesn't mean they don't value protection. That's a tough thing to answer. It's a tough answer for all of you to answer.
And I would be afraid that the perception would be then half of our staff doesn't care about the safety of our kids, and that's the furthest thing from the truth.
Absolutely, I agree.
So I just worry about the perception of that. If it went on, as you counted, what, 51, 49?
49 now.
Yeah, and that just would be so I don't know that the staff one will go up there. And I'm also worried about future responses, because I know the building survey from time to time, they may be less likely to participate in any kind of survey if their results are made public. So as I think about that, my preference would be to keep that internal.
One last thing on topic for me. I think ideally, we should be doing all of the things that we discussed tonight.
Yeah.
Providing armed guards, hardening the schools, and providing the counselors and psychologists and the
Yeah.
educators needed. So
Yeah.
I think that we should charge ourselves as the board over the next few years, we try to achieve that goal in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, it's not one or the other.
Absolutely not. No, I'm just looking at what's the fastest and to me the most effective way right now, and that's putting someone in the building that could potentially deter an attack on that facility while we harden the facility in general and bring in educators and counselors.
Continuing to harden the buildings. I hate to use that term, but that's what it is. Anytime there's an opportunity to do something with funding, be it grants with the current state safety and security monies, we are investing in the security of our kids. That is unfortunately our priority. Education right now comes second to that, because we are charged with the safety of everybody's kid, even that one that you had mentioned. So that's an ongoing process. The state set up 3 tiers of safety and security for our buildings. We're still in tier 1. We're very close to tier 2, and I want to get there so that we can start making further investments in the safety and security of our kids and employees. So we've got the
Questions, I'm sure. So let's move on then from the agenda item, and we'll move to committee reports. And
could I just,
yes.
Administrator, that you guys have early mornings. If you need to go, go. It's understood. Some of you had early mornings this morning, so, and I know some of you have a distance to go to, so.
Archery season? No. Bloodwork stuff coming in tomorrow, but it's from the health department, for staff, thank you.
Oh, is that tomorrow?
You're free to leave or free to stay and enjoy the discussion.
I have no supervisory authority.
Okay. Our Vice President will walk us through the committee reports.
Okay, I don't have anything new from the SBA. Dr. Crone, anything at all?
Nothing this time.
Dr. Beery, are you?
Oh, no, we meet next week.
President Schimmel, LCTC.
Nothing noteworthy to report.
Okay. Mr. Almer, Memorial Gardens budget and Montoursville Foundation.
Nothing on budget, foundation. I would like to just convey a thank you to the administration. I see you're going to be supporting a fundraiser, that you're sponsoring a table, and maybe it's news to the administrators, but you're also donating a basket for the raffle. So thank you very much.
Good basket. We may end up buying tickets for that basket.
One of us is going to win it. That's awesome.
That, again, fundraiser coming up November 9th. So if you got an invite, send those responses back as soon as possible.
And is that raising money for Memorial Gardens, or that's separate, correct?
For the Memorial Gardens, we are, again, looking for a start date sometime here in October. It probably is going to push towards the end. The Ettinger's company is very busy, but we are on their books. Product has been acquired, so it's just a matter of them having the time to start the renovation work. Fundraising, I don't have a total.
Don't we just give the most recent?
hopefully closing in on 110.
That's awesome.
Yeah. we
So
don't have to-
with what I know, we had 104,998 the last meeting, and I know I have 4,500 on its way into my office, so we're just under 110,000.
Which is wonderful. We're certainly at a point where we're close to covering the entire renovation project, and what we're hoping to do is continue to fundraise to set aside some funds for the ongoing maintenance care in future years. So that's why the target was 200,000, which I know is rather ambitious, but we needed to hit a $120,000 goal to handle the project. So for all those that have contributed, thank you. For those that have been thinking of doing it, just haven't had that chance yet, there's still an opportunity. I'm not going to shut it down. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Alberts, building grounds?
Yeah, the over at middle school, Joe, that bank that they're working on, is that something that the state's doing?
No, I did. Remember, we discussed this a long time ago.
Yeah,
I
we
told
did.
you I was gonna try to work on it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to work on it through my budget. So we finally got it.
That's
I
good.
know it's
That's a
still
good
all the
thing.
way to the top. There's geofiber underneath it.
Mhm.
It's, yep.
Yeah,
We've done it in about 2
yeah.
weeks.
So that's a good thing, because that may deter a little bit of watershed down in there.
Well, we can already drive back there before we put the ditch in last year,
Mhm.
all the drainage, so we
Yeah.
can, it's gonna be nice.
Yeah, I just wanted to recognize that.
Thank you, Joe.
I enjoy it. That's in charge of it.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
takes a leader. Mr. Badger, extracurricular?
So to be honest with you, I don't know what I'm supposed to talk about here. I've looked through the book of how to be a school board member that I got from Ms. Basin. It doesn't talk anything about it.
You're right.
However, here's what I'm thinking. Hey, sports season's in full swing right now. And if you haven't caught some sporting events, the girls soccer team's absolutely crushing it right now. It's fantastic. It's fun to follow. The football team didn't have a very good day on Friday, but they played some nail-biters that have been incredibly entertaining. So get out there and support those kids. They put in a lot of work, a lot of effort for that. And along the same lines, that is a donation piece. I kind of went back and forth. I'm not promoting the YMCA here at all, but we are doing a fundraiser for Coach Fountain to try to give him some money to help with what he's going through right now. So if you swing down to my branch down in Muncie there, we have 2 big giant Coleman coolers that are Penn State cars. One of them has 4 40-yard line tickets plus a parking pass to Penn State game, I think November 11th it is. Plus there's a bunch of snacks and there may or may not be some booze in there. The other cooler has 4 tickets to, I think it's a January 8th wrestling, Penn State wrestling match. If you haven't been to a Penn State wrestling match, those are fun too. And that also has snacks and may or may not have booze in there as well. There's also tumblers and Penn State blankets and all that good stuff. 100% of the proceeds, the money that we make on selling tickets for those goes right back to Coach. So we're not taking any of that. So I feel comfortable I can talk about that here. So if that's something you're interested in, hit me up. I'll hook you up with some tickets. It's $10 a ticket or $20 for 3. And then, like I said, it all goes right back to Coach.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, this time now we'll move on to the second public comment section of the meeting. Residents and taxpayers may comment on matters of concern, official action, or deliberation before the board. Members of the public will be provided one unpaused 3-minute time.
Yeah, Jack Callahan again. I want somebody to look into these old school bus stops where the kids had to go. There's one right as you go down to Muncie. Is everybody familiar with that one on the right-hand side? And I don't know about the school board members out in the country and that. I'd like to get one of them or a couple of them and reassemble them someplace to, maybe at the Borough Society or somebody to talk to that, about getting one of them. They're made of that one towards Muncie. I don't know how many, you could probably only get 2 kids in it today. But I'd also like to say, they didn't have a high school. Kids lived in Rose Valley, went to Ralston High School in the old days. And they didn't go to Montoursville. They went all the way up to Ralston to go to high school, because my uncle graduated from up there. And, and this business about assemblies, I hear we don't have assemblies. I've heard this for years, not just, I think it would be good to bring back assemblies. I know when everybody enjoyed assemblies when I went, and they served a purpose too. And I mean, we're never going to bring back the Rootknum or the May Day. We had the first May Day in this area, and it was one of the best, the best. So, I mean, I think people are missing out on a lot of stuff. But I don't know why they, you know, I don't know if you can get everybody into the auditorium here and have an assembly for the high school or what, you know. And also, I'd like to mention the gymnasium. That was architect of that was Jack Zimmerman. I don't know if any of you know Jack Zimmerman, the old superintendent. He was the architect, and possibly the only thing that's wrong with that is the handicap seating on the floors. The handicap, they have no way to get out of the way, and it's dangerous the way it's set up right now for that. I mean, now they can, there's a lot of room at both ends where they can put wheelchairs in for the thing, and I think that should be noted, that wheelchair accessibility at the end of both ends of the gymnasium. And I haven't had a chance to get out and look for any of these old bus stops for where the schools stop, but I think I missed out on the train station down on as you go to the airport. I'd love to see that in the old days. And it's completely torn down. And I'd also like to mention that, I don't know if you all read it, somebody did on the Lincoln assassination. It's written up that he came right through Montoursville, right across them tracks. It came right through Montoursville to go down and help assassinate Lincoln.
Hi, Tina Marie Klein again. I want to commend the board members because I haven't been at a meeting in a couple months, but I greatly appreciated several of you tonight who abstained from votes when there was conflict of interest. I find it very refreshing for an elected official to actually show some ethics and integrity, so thank you. In particular, Mr. Albert, given your license being hired. So I just wanted to say that, and I appreciate that because, as I said, integrity are very important to me. The other thing I just wanted to comment on, and I do appreciate your frank discussion related to armed security, not armed security. And I don't envy you with all the things that you need to look at and consider because you do need to wear multiple hats in looking at that. I will say I like the idea that we need to be doing multiple things. It's not a one-size-fits-all. Every time there's a school shooting, I repost on Facebook, it was a blog, it was written right after Sandy Hook, and it was entitled, I Am Adam Lance's Mother. We can do things here, and I think we should, but we really need to be advocating for better mental health facilities outside of here. Because the reality is, for kids and also adolescents, there is no place for that. So you can have a parent who may see some signs in their kid, may see that they're troubled, and they have no resources whatsoever. So, that is something to look at. We definitely need to, harden the physical barriers. I think the armed security is definitely a conversation to have, but we also need to look at the other things as well. Because we do. We have adults and adolescents literally sitting in ERs for 7, 8, 10, 14 days waiting on a bed in a residential facility. And basically in rooms, and essentially suicide rooms that are padded, they have nothing. And we're obviously not helping them. So it is something to consider. We need to look at everything. But I would like to see us take an even bigger stand, you know, with our elected officials, county, state, all the way up. Because we talk a good game, but nothing ever gets done. So I applaud you for having the discussion, and I want to hear continued discussions, and I'd like to see us move forward on several things, because it's not a one-size-fits-all. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Joe, first of all, I want to thank you for your work over in the bank over there. It's a huge improvement. It looks great. And I think it's going to definitely help the drainage over there. I come to you tonight with two issues. First of all, there's over 500 school districts in the state. The administration cost, not the teachers cost, the administration cost in the state of Pennsylvania for these schools is $1 billion. The average median household income in our county, median household income, is $2,500. It's not much higher than the Montoursville School District. So as you make these decisions on administration costs and putting multiple administration in these buildings, you're not in the private sector. You're not making a product that you can charge a higher fee. You're in a limited tax base, and they can't keep affording increases. $1 billion statewide. The state's going to go broke, and Montoursville School District and other school districts are going to go broke, and you're going to be faced with more difficult decisions. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I totally agree with Mr. Young. This is a gentleman who's the captain of the state police barracks, had 200 men underneath him. He has lived this. I have lived this in my private profession. We don't live in the same society we lived in. Even 3 years ago. After COVID, we have so much mental health issues with the kids. Who goes into schools and does the shootings? Not adults. It's other kids. And you don't hear about the cases where the school shootings are stopped because the media doesn't put it on the news, or they put it on a small segment at 6:29 in the 6:30 news. They don't talk about that. There was one at Bishop Newman. It happens in our backyard. And I believe you all remember that. So anyone who says it can't happen here, it can. I know you're faced with a tough decision. No one wants to increase taxes. I didn't receive the survey. My wife did. I have a senior here. I don't know why I received the survey, because every other phone call I receive, if she misses school or anything else, I get a phone call. I didn't get the survey. And I have to question the survey, because I don't ever recall a survey talking about additional personnel tied to possible tax increase. I've never seen that before, but it was mentioned in this survey. There is federal monies out there that wants to put schools with armed police officers in schools. Williamsport's hiring right now $32 an hour. They're putting retired police officers, anyone with a law enforcement background can go up there right now. I know several personally that have been recently hired. These kids go to the same schools, they have the same friends, they intermingle, and Montoursville cannot stick their head in the sand and say, well, it's just our kids that want to do it here. These kids socialize with each other. Everything is intermingled with social media nowadays. They talk to each other, so it's very important that whatever decision you do, that person has to be armed at that front door, because they can shoot through the glass, they can come in. 2020 had a segment on a few years ago. There was a student walked into a school, had a trench coat on him. Wouldn't have known, he had 6 guns on him. 6. He pulled them all in 15 seconds. He had a shotgun up his sleeve in his trench coat. And I'll leave you with this. After Uvalde happened, I reached out to the Little League president in Uvalde. He's a school board member. He's a retired police officer, 20 years. To hear the heartbreak in that man's voice, and to hear people from all over the world were calling him, expressing condolences. He broke down on the phone. was a block away from Liger. I went by that Little League field, and many of us have spent a lot of time on it. And I thought, wow, he lost 9 Little Leaguers out of those 21 kids. That could have been our Little League field, that could have been our school. How could you look a person in the face? One of those parents were at that school 2 hours before, celebrating with their kids, getting pictures, only to get a phone call news they're gone. No one should ever have to explain to that parent that you didn't take some kind of preventive measure. So whatever decision you make, it has to be someone who's armed. And that cost is minimal when it comes to a child's life. And that's why we're all here, because we love kids. And we have that responsibility. Thank you.
Brenda Oberheim, Woodland Court. My concern is now that we've discussed it, a lot of things do end up in the newspaper. It's going to become public knowledge that Montoursville, out of all the schools, doesn't have it. And I hope that that, doesn't, not that we didn't need to discuss it, but it will make it public knowledge that we don't have it. So won't that make us, possibly a target? Also, it seems like, we talk about taxes and tax increases, and this is something that people are saying they would be willing to take a tax increase for. And a lot of the people that want to spend the money on what the public didn't want are in favor of this. I think it was Mr. Almer and Mrs. Mathers and possibly Mrs. Beery. You guys were all for a really big school project that we really didn't want. But now when we say, hey, we might need this, it seems to be, oh, no. I don't want to raise anybody's taxes, and this might just be too much of a big deal. Our kids' safety is a big deal. So when I stand up here and say there's things that are going to come up that we're going to need to have money for, and we shouldn't just spend it on things that the public doesn't see as important, this is one of those things we needed to save money for.
Hey all, Sharon Meyer, Fairfield Township. I was listening earlier, I know I came in late, but I was watching you guys and decided to drive down. I've been thinking a lot about the school security and have had conversations, and you guys had a very great and thoughtful conversation. The one thing that sort of caught me a little bit off guard, and I did answer the survey, by the way, so I got it, is the fact that we were taking ESSER funds that was set aside for teachers to start this. By the way, I have no problem saying I'm for having armed guards in our schools. But I also feel as if what other people are saying, that mental health and whatnot need to be in there. But again, it's going to go back to something I've talked to you guys about, and I will probably beat this drum forever, is class size. And if we have smaller classes, we're closer to our kids, and how we get there is extra teachers. And so I was disheartened to hear that. I'm just going to be real honest, that ESSER funds I could have funded 2 teachers and was being used for this. So I don't know if there's some way that, we can get the best of all worlds in this. That would be fantastic, because I think, these kids do need a lot, and they are struggling. And I think the closer connection that they can have to those teachers and having that one-on-one is our best line of defense, to be honest with you, is having that person that cares. And yes, an armed police officer in the building, I think, is very important. But in the same token, and something that truly has to be considered in that, is also having that educator and having those classes be smaller, because, it's for them too. So if there's any way that we can figure out a way not to use ESSER funds for this, and instead be able to get those 2 additional teachers, that would be fantastic. Thanks.
not seeing anybody else approaching the podium, we'll close this section and move to adjournment. And yes,
something when we was having a discussion on armed security, I was going to bring up and then I forgot about it. I just remembered it again. If anybody watched the news tonight, there was a middle school in Pennsylvania just today where a kid brought a handgun and
Midwest. It was Midwest. Yeah, Midwest Middle School.
At middle school brought a handgun and ammo.
Yep. He was showing it on the bus.
He was showing it on the bus to other kids. What he had planned to do with it, who knows? But the fact that he had it is scary.
And kids reported it,
right?
Thankfully, but that's really our best line of defense is that communication with administrators. And I know we heard it again tonight, administration. Not these guys. I might be the only extra position right now. I'll take that one. But I'm here supporting this admin team and our staff and our kids, and I will continue to do that. But these guys are necessary. This admin team handles that kind of communication with kids, and they are necessary for our buildings. They are necessary for the safety and security of our kids. So if you want to take shots at admin, take them at me, because yeah, I'm the extra. I'm the assistant superintendent. But these guys are required. These guys are required for the operations of our building, for the safety and security of our kids. They're just a necessary component to the day-to-day operation. So I want to thank the admin team for their efforts and what they do for our kids on a daily basis. And Scott, you have us blocked, so if you unblock us, you'll get our messages. So it comes up as blocked every time we try to contact you. So you got our number blocked. You missed the PSAT. You missed the PSAT communication, the free breakfast communication.
You almost got breakfast. Jason's missed it all.
Yeah,
Let's just say she's not here for
blocked.
anything.
We all know sometimes it shows up as potential spam.
That's been corrected.
Has there ever been a survey that went out before that had mentioned a position tied with a possible tax increase? I've never seen that.
For the security survey?
No, for any survey that you send out.
No, we have just started doing
so that's
the
the
surveys.
first
Yeah, that's the first, and you've got us blocked. So if you sign up again, or I can go in here and unblock you, let me know.
Thank you.
Let's recognize the fact that this
security.
security.
You got my personal number, you can text me.
Yeah. I have many personal numbers. That's all I would do is text me.
We've done it a couple times.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, let's face it, armed security is a horse of a different color. It is a different arena when we talk about adding personnel, educational personnel or whatever. So this affects people in a different kind of way than. That's why we've reached out to the public to get their sentiment. So I wouldn't expect. Well, we wouldn't be doing our job if we tried to put our finger in the air on every vote and see which way the wind's blowing. That's what they do in some states, and then, no, we know we have to make decisions, and we're not gonna be liked for it, or we will be liked for it. It's just part of why we're here. It comes with our paycheck. Oh, wait, we don't get a paycheck.
Comes with the stress.
I will say that as far as the staffing though, we are up 4 teachers from last year, and we're up 6 classroom aides. So, we're trying to go in the right direction, and I hear what you're saying, Sharon. Now, Dan's the curriculum director primarily, and we agreed we needed to bring that component back. So yes, we added the administrator, but we primarily added curriculum, and we had some other hats he has to wear. We placed those on him. So, in a sense, yeah, we added him, but that position was gone for a while. Some of the other positions we were buying from the IU, now they're ours, and at a more economical rate, a cost-efficient rate, I should say. So, all right, board, I guess I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Hey, I just want to say one thing real quick, just about the faculty and the outstanding job that they're doing with these kids that may show some signs of flags. Mr. Myers, specifically Ms. Walker. She saw a change in my voice a couple of weeks ago because we're going through some stress with family life or whatever. And she called me directly to ask if everything was okay with them and to let me know what she saw. And we kind of talked through some stuff. And then when they came home, I talked to them, and then we've been good ever since. So thank you to you guys for doing that.
Can add what Mrs. Klein's saying. It's real. What she's saying is real. There's needs for kids, but there's not resources out there. So I think our admin team, we really try to, as I'm at the door every day, greeting every kid, I'm looking in their eyes, trying to see what's going on, because that's the first level of defense, because we just don't know what the kids are dealing with day in, day out, because there just aren't services out. You can't find the help and mental health. And so we have to try to do the best job we can.
Encourage, thank you for that.
All right, well, we either have to extend or we have to adjourn. Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right.
Thanks everybody for the conversation tonight. That was good.